The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson is filled with curious creatures known as Spren. They personify nearly everything on Roshar, from sensations like anger and joy to natural phenomena like wind and rain. In this video, we will learn about all 68 Spren we've seen so far. Lesser Spren. The vast majority of Spren are non-sapient. These are known as Lesser Spren. They are a common part of everyday life on Roshar. Most Lesser Spren exist almost entirely in the cognitive realm, or Shadesmar as it's referred to on Roshar, with only parts of them visible in the physical realm, like their tongues or drool. They are essentially the animals of Shadesmar. The following are the 45 Lesser Spren we've encountered so far. Agony Spren are a rare Spren that are drawn to a person's agony and suffering. They appear as upside-down faces carved from stone that press out from nearby walls and floors and then fade in and out. Spren are a rare type of Spren that only appear when one is heavily intoxicated. We first hear about them from Axes the Collector when he wakes up in an alley after a night of heavy drinking. His note from the night before reads,
"Test successful. Have noted Spren who appear only when one is severely intoxicated. Appear as small brown bubbles clinging to objects nearby. Further testing may be needed to prove they were more than a drunken hallucination."
Other names for Spren include Sudspren and Winespren. Anger Spren are a common type of emotion Spren that appear around people experiencing anger. To humans in the physical realm, they appear as pools of blood bubbling up from the ground around the feet of the angry individual. The singers see them a bit differently, appearing as red lightning in the distance that dance across the ground toward them with great speed, before pooling at their feet. This is due to singers being able to see the reality of Spren more closely than humans.
In Shadesmar, they are described as nasty and dangerous creatures that make loud screeching sounds. The pools of boiling blood in the physical realm are merely their saliva pooling as they drool.
Anguish Spren are a rare type of emotion Spren that are drawn by feelings of anguish and extreme loss. They look like teeth growing from the walls. Anticipation Spren are a common type of emotion Spren that appear around people looking forward to something, or who are feeling nervous about something, such as an upcoming battle. They appear in the physical realm as red streamers that grow from the ground and whip in the wind. In Shadesmar, they are creatures with fat, bulbous bodies and squat legs, and they're about the size of a toddler. When they sense anticipation, they tip their entire top half of their head backward, which allows them to stick their long red tongues into the air and wave them about. These tongues are what appear as streamers in the physical realm. Anxiety Spren show up around people experiencing feelings of anxiety or worry. They appear as twisting black cross shapes. Spren are fairly rare and appear around people who are very awestruck. To humans, they look like rings of blue smoke that burst out from above the awestruck individual. Singers see them slightly differently as floating blue balls that approach the awestruck individual from afar and then expand with great enthusiasm. Bind Spren appear around objects bound with a full lashing. They look like tiny splashes of dark blue ink clustering around the place where the object is bound. We've only seen this type of Spren once so far in the books, after Kaladin lashes a rock to a wall. He believes that the Spren are what hold the rock to the wall, but Syl thinks that they may simply be attracted to the full lashing. Captivity Spren are a type of Spren that Axes the Collector has been searching for many years, but despite being incarcerated numerous times, he has never observed them, leading him to believe they are a myth. Later, however, while Kaladin is imprisoned, he sees strange Spren that look like taut wires crossing before him. Brandon has confirmed these strange Spren were Captivity Spren. Cold Spren grow up from surfaces like spikes pointing toward the sky. It's unclear whether they are attracted to low temperatures or the sensation of being cold, but they show up all over Urithiru. They are mentioned in page 1 of Navani's notebook, which has surprisingly been translated from women's script to English. That page explains that cold Spren can be captured in gems of a certain cut and used in fabrial machines. Concentration Spren show up around people who are deeply focused on a task. They look like ripples in the air above the person who attracted them, similar to a raindrop in a pond. Creationspren are an uncommon type of spren that appear around people performing creative acts such as painting or drawing. They are of medium size, about as tall as a person's finger, and they glow with a faint silvery light. They take the forms of objects they have seen recently. They imitate these shapes exactly, but move them in strange ways, such as a table rolling like a wheel, or an urn shattering and repairing itself. It seems like the number of Creationspren that show up depends on the skill of the person performing the creative act.
In Shadesmar, they appear as small, swirling shapes of changing colors of light, which evoke different impressions such as faces. Singers bond Creationspren to enter art form, and Lightweaver's shard plate is created from Creationspren. Deathspren are a type of spren that show up when a person is near death. They are fist-sized and black, with many legs and deep red eyes that glow, leaving trails of burning light as they move. They whisper to the dying person with scratchy voices that sound like paper being torn. Only the dying can see Deathspren, and very few people survive once they see them. Because of this, some people don't even believe they are real. Rosharan surgeons are taught to wash their hands before operating on patients, not because of cleanliness, but because they believe Deathspren and Rotspren hate water. Decayspren are a type of spren that show up around places and objects that have been abandoned or neglected, and also rotting food. They have the appearance of barnacles, and they are frightened off when the place they are attracted to is disturbed.
Exhaustionspren show up around people who are exhausted. This includes mental exhaustion as well as physical exhaustion. In the physical realm, humans see them as brown-colored jets of dust that shoot into the air and swirl above the exhausted individual. Singers hear them coming with a sound like wind and see them as jets of translucent vapor that become more visible as they approach and spin around the exhausted individual's head like swirls of steam. In Shadesmar, they look like large, dark gray bird-like creatures that circle overhead, their forms blurry. Fearspren are a common type of spren that appear around people experiencing fear. Humans see them as violet globs of goo that wriggle up from the ground and gather around the feet of the fearful individual. Singers see them as long purple worms that dive in and out of the ground as they approach the fearful individual, and then crawl out and cluster around them. In Shadesmar, Fearspren appear as eel-like creatures as big as an axehound, but longer and thinner. They have stumpy legs and long purple antennae on their heads. These antennae are what humans and singers see in the physical realm. There's a type of spren called Fermentationspren that we haven't seen in the books, but Brandon has confirmed they exist. Flamespren are a common type of spren that show up around fire. They appear vaguely human with ever-shifting figures and are made solely of congealed light. They often dance around fires and atop burning logs. It has been discovered that if a person takes a measurement of a flamespren, the spren will become locked at that measurement. This discovery has led to some interesting fabrials being created. Gloomspren are a rare type of spren that show up around people who are feeling resignation or deep sadness. They look like long, gray, tattered banners of cloth that whip around the gloomy individual. One of Syl's aunts liked to hunt Gloomspren, similar to how the Alethi hunt great shells. Gloryspren appear when a person feels pride in their accomplishments, such as winning a battle or telling a great joke. Humans see them as tiny golden translucent globes of light that spin and dart around the person feeling pride. Singers see them as enormous, brilliant spheres with long wings along the sides and flowing tails. In Shadesmar, they are avian-like creatures that fly around together in formations. They have bulbous bodies, long wings, and flowing tails. Instead of a head, they have a golden ball floating right in front of their body. It seems that their head is what humans see in the physical realm, and the rest of their body is what singers see in the physical realm. Gravitationspren are a type of spren that Rosharans attribute to the power or force that causes things to fall toward the ground. Zin-daughter Voth, a Shin scholar who researched spren, sketched these as tiny spren that she sometimes found around heavy objects. Singers can bond Gravitationspren to enter work form, and Skybreaker Plate is formed from Gravitationspren. There are also Gravityspren and Groundspren mentioned in the books, but they are described as pulling things downward just like Gravitationspren, so they are likely just different names for the same spren. Heatspren aren't explicitly described in the books, but they do show up in Navani's notebook. They can be captured in gems of a certain cut and used in fabrial machines. They could simply be another name for Flamespren, but as of the making of this video, that is unclear. Hungerspren appear around people experiencing extreme hunger. They flit around the hungry person's head like tiny flies, almost too small to see. They are usually described as being brown, but there is one instance where they are described as black. Joyspren are a somewhat rare type of spren that appear around people feeling intense happiness, excitement, or accomplishment. Humans see them as blue leaves or petals that swirl around the person, starting at their feet before flaring out above their head, as if in a blast of wind. Singers see them burst around the person like a beautiful blue storm. In Shadesmar, they appear as spinning cyclones of color. Laughterspren will sometimes appear in the presence of laughter. They show up as minnow-like silver spirits that dart through the air in circular patterns around the laughing individuals. Lifespren are a common type of spren that appear around plant life, such as rock buds, frill blooms, and shale bark. They are especially prevalent just after high storms. Humans see them as motes of glowing green dust that bob around and flip from plant to plant. Singers see them as bright green bobbing balls with white spines poking out, and they can bond Lifespren to enter mate form. In Shadesmar, they are slightly larger but have tufts of white hair that ripple as they dance and bob. It has been discovered that Lifespren can be used along with Stormlight and music to make plants grow in places they normally wouldn't, such as in Urithiru. This setup works similar to a fabrial and drains Stormlight from gemstones, eventually cracking them. Although rare, Lifespren sometimes show up around very populated areas regardless of whether plant life is present. We see on numerous occasions that Lifespren are attracted to Lift when she uses her powers, so it's possible that Lifespren will form Edgedancer armor. Logicspren are a rare type of spren that are attracted to great arguments. They appear as tiny storm clouds, and they are most commonly seen amongst scholars and engineers. Artifabrians are able to capture Logicspren and gemstones and create fabrial clocks with them. They are the spren that form Elsecaller shardplate. Luckspren are a type of spren that fly around sky eels, chasm fiends, and other great shells. In the physical realm, they appear as small, glowing arrowheads with stubby, rippling bodies. They fly together in schools, but occasionally one will drift away from the others and then vanish like a small plume of smoke rising into the air. When a chasm fiend is slain, the Luckspren surrounding it will all poof into smoke in a similar fashion. In Shadesmar, they are much larger flying beasts called Mandra. They have long, sinuous bodies, triangular heads, and multiple sets of rippling wings. Certain types of sentient spren use these Mandra to pull ships through the seas of beads. They have a habit of dropping, where they vanish for a time, being pulled into the physical realm, making it necessary to use multiple Mandra to pull a ship, no matter how small the ship is. Larger great shells need to bond Luckspren to keep from crushing themselves to death with their own weight. Similarly, Larkin need to bond a special breed of Luckspren that are only found in Aemia so they can grow to their proper size and continue to fly. The singers refer to Luckspren as Chasmspren. Musicspren are a type of spren that often appear around musical performances. They appear as tiny translucent spinning ribbons that zip through the air around music. Interestingly, they also seem to be attracted to running Rashadium. It's unclear whether it's the Rashadium's pounding hoofbeats that attract them, or perhaps Rashadium bond with Musicspren. Painspren appear around people who are experiencing physical pain. They look like small, sinewy orange hands with the flesh removed. They crawl out of the ground and walls to swarm around the pained individual, latching onto the wounded areas. Singers can bond with Painspren to enter war form. Passionspren appear around people experiencing passionate feelings, such as intense love or an intense lust for battle. In the physical realm, they look like tiny flakes of crystalline snow that float down in the air around the passionate people. In Shadesmar, they are long flying spren with mustaches and a graceful body. When they fly off, they eject an explosion of tiny crystalline shards that float down. This is what appears to people in the physical realm. In Rhythm of War, the sibling says that humans are like persuasion spren because they are so good with words. It is unclear if this is a real spren or just a figure of speech used by the sibling. Plaguespren are a new type of spren that first started being seen after a plague broke out in western Roshar. Brandon has confirmed that this plague is actually the common cold that was introduced to Roshar by world hoppers. Rainspren are a type of spren that show up in rain puddles, most commonly after the weeping. To humans, they look like glowing blue candles that seem to melt but never grow smaller. They are about ankle high and have a single eye at the top that stares upward, unblinking. Singers see them in much the same way, but they also see clawed feet that curl and uncurl at their base. Brandon has confirmed that there are rainbow spren that occasionally show up with rainbows after a high storm. River spren are a common spren that show up in bodies of water such as rivers and the Pure Lake. They are larger spren than most and described as eel-like. They have the ability to mimic voices and expressions, but they aren't sentient. The listeners see river spren as being carapace covered. Rot spren are a common type of spren that gather around infected wounds and rotting corpses. They are small, red, translucent motes, and they crawl around wounds like tiny insects. Most people on Roshar believe that rot spren are what causes infection, rather than simply being attracted by it. They frighten off rot spren by washing their hands in soapy water, boiling cloth before using it to wrap wounds, and using antiseptics, such as Lister's oil, knobweed sap, and larmic mucus. Shame spren are attracted to feelings of shame or embarrassment. They look like translucent white and red flower petals that float in the air around the person feeling shame. Shock spren are a rare type of spren that appear around people experiencing fearful shock or amazement. They look like pale yellow triangles of light that shatter and reform around the person in shock. Brandon has said that there are snow spren in the mountains on Roshar, such as the Horn-Eater Peaks. We will likely see these in future books when characters visit these peaks. Star spren are a rare type of spren that appear in the night sky amongst the stars. In the physical realm, they look like tiny pinpricks of light, chasing after one another, forming patterns and zipping around like distant, glowing insects. In Shadesmar, they are huge creatures with an ashen carapace and a long neck. They have a sinuous look similar to chasm fiends, but they fly with 7 sets of enormous insect-like wings. Clouds trail along behind them as they fly, and others cling to their chins like a beard. They are only visible from certain angles. Sparkling lights glow beneath their skin or shell along their wings and legs like points on a constellation. These lights are what show up in the physical realm. There's a type of mysterious massive spren that have long, spindly, glowing legs. Their figures have been described as inhuman, alien, and sleek. They only move about during high storms. Kaladin and Shallan briefly see 2 of them walking on the plains above them in words of radiance when they are in the chasms during a high storm. Dalinar also sees one off in the distance in Oathbringer when he is traveling between storm shelters during a high storm. They haven't officially been given a name in the books, so it may end up being different, but for now, fans refer to them as Stormstriders. The Taina are island-sized great shells that make up the Reshi Isles, and they are inhabited by the Reshi people. They are able to grow to this gargantuan size because of their bond with an unknown spren. This spren is referred to as the soul of the Taina by the Reshi people. These souls sometimes show themselves to people and are able to interact with the physical realm in certain ways, such as slowing a person's fall to save them from death. Axes the Collector believes these spren must be spectacular and differ from the Luckspren that bond other great shells. Wave spren show up in the ocean, commonly seen dancing atop white wave caps or crawling onto beaches before quickly scuttling back into the water. They are 4-legged creatures with smooth skin and large eyes. The final type of lesser spren we have seen are wind spren. These are a common type of spren that show up in the presence of wind. They are some of the larger spren found on Roshar, and often show up in the physical realm as vaguely translucent ribbons of light that glow softly. They also have the ability to change shape at will and like to take on the appearance of small people. Windspren are commonly seen zipping around and dancing playfully in the wind, but they are also mischievous and will play pranks on people, such as sticking shoes to the ground or sticking objects together. They are able to mimic voices and are often heard giggling as they fly by and mess with people. Windspren spend most of their time in the physical realm, so they are quite a rare sight in Shadesmar. There, they are described as pinpricks in the air that trail long, soft luminescence behind them. The way singers see Windspren in the physical realm is very similar to how they appear in Shadesmar. It also seems that singers might bond Windspren when taking on Nimble form. Windspren are the spren that form Windrunner Shardplate. True Spren. Spren that possess sapience are known as True Spren. They spend the majority of their time in Shadesmar, but occasionally will transition to the physical realm to form a nail bond with a human or singer. Without that bond, they become almost mindless in the physical realm. In Shadesmar, they act much like people, doing things like forming cities, setting up shops, and sailing ships. We'll go through the 10 True Spren we've encountered, starting with Ashspren. Ashspren are a sapient spren that can form Nile bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Dustbringers, granting the surges of division and abrasion. In the physical realm, they seem to burn through the inside of objects in curious tree-like patterns. They have the ability to choose who they show themselves to, most commonly only the human they bonded. It's said that they like to break things to see what's inside. In Shadesmar, Ashspren look like humans with ash-white skin. When they move around, their skin stretches in various locations and disintegrates, blowing away and revealing the bones beneath before quickly regrowing. Cryptics are a type of sapient spren that can form Nile bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Lightweavers, granting the surges of illumination and transformation. They are the personification of the underlying mathematical truths that govern Roshar and the Cosmere at large. In the physical realm, cryptics appear as a complex and constantly shifting geometric pattern that is raised slightly off the surface they are on. They aren't able to make themselves invisible like some large spren, but they can blend into the surface they are on extremely well, making them difficult to spot unless you know what you're looking for. In Shadesmar, cryptics appear as tall, dark, willowy figures in robes that hang stiffly as if made of glass instead of fabric. Floating above the robe's collars is a complex, shifting geometric pattern much like the one in the physical realm. The shifting patterns of their heads never seem to repeat, and it will change speed and shape based on their mood. They have bony, long-fingered hands that look like they were chiseled from obsidian or white marble. Cryptics have a fascination with lies. Because of this, some humans call them Lightspren. Cultivationspren are a type of sentient spren that can form Nile bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Edgedancers, granting the surges of abrasion and progression. In the physical realm, Cultivationspren look like vines with leaves and gemstones intertwined. They grow rapidly to move, leaving a long trail of vines behind them that soon crystallize and decay into dust. They can form a face out of their vines, leaves, and gemstones, but they can speak even when they haven't formed a face. They are able to make themselves invisible and unheard to people if they wish, but sometimes the remnants of their disintegrated vines can be seen. In Shadesmar, Cultivationspren look human-shaped, but they are made out of interwoven vines. They have crystal hands and wear human clothing. Their faces look as if they are made from green string, and they have crystals for eyes. Some of them practice gardening and grow objects such as chairs. Highspren are a type of sapient spren that can form Nile bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Skybreakers, granting the surges of gravitation and division. They are a bit different than other Radiant Spren, as they don't form a bond until their prospective Skybreaker swears at least the second ideal. In the physical realm, Highspren appear as slits in the air that separate the sky like wounds in the skin, showing a blackness speckled faintly with stars beyond. When they move, reality seems to bend around them. In Shadesmar, Highspren have the appearance of tears in reality in the shape of people, through which blackness speckled with stars can be seen. When they move, the stars don't move with them, making them seem like a window into an alternate reality. Their forms are solid, and although humans have great difficulty distinguishing individual Highspren themselves seem to have no difficulty identifying one another. They hold laws and legal codes in high regard. Honorspren are a type of sapient spren that can form Nile bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Windrunners, granting the surges of adhesion and gravitation. In the physical realm, Honorspren look much the same as Windspren, and if they aren't bonded to a human, they have the same impish personality too. They glow a white-blue color and can change their appearance and form at will. This includes changing into shapes such as clouds and changing their clothing. They mostly stick to being human-shaped and are usually quite small, but they can grow larger if they need to. They are able to make themselves invisible to everyone but their bonded human if they wish. In Shadesmar, Honorspren look like humans with blue-white skin and are also human-sized. They seem to wear clothes, but the clothes are actually part of their essence and require Stormlight to change. They aren't able to change shape like they can in the physical realm. Inkspren are a type of sapient spren that can form Nihil bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Elsecallers, granting the surges of transformation and transportation, though many Inkspren refuse to bond humans. In the physical realm, Inkspren are human-shaped figures that wear either stiff, formal suits or armor. The coloring of both their clothes and features are jet black, though their skin has prismatic swirls like black marble coated in oil and glistens with hidden color. Their eyes are described as having no pupils, just oil shimmering above something deeply black. Unlike many sapient spren, Inkspren can't make themselves invisible to people, but they can change size at will, but not their shape. They can make themselves as small as a speck of dust or as large as a human. Interestingly, Inkspren look exactly the same in Shadesmar as they do in the physical realm, but they are unable to change size in Shadesmar and are instead permanently human-sized. Lightspren are a type of sapient spren that can form Nihil bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Will Shapers, granting the surges of transportation and cohesion. In the physical realm, Lightspren appear as small balls of white light that pulses. When they move, they leave behind a glowing trail like that of a comet. They can be blown by the wind, and when touched, they feel like silk and give off warmth. It seems that they are unable to make themselves invisible. In Shadesmar, Lightspren are known as Reachers. They look like humans with metallic bronze skin and hair, like living statues. They resemble Shin people with large, childlike eyes made of metal and holes where their pupils should be. They're known to wear human clothing and read books. Reachers are adept sailors and make frequent journeys across the Sea of Souls in ships pulled by Mandra. Because of this, they often serve as Shadesmar guides for humans. Mistspren are a type of sapient spren that can form Nihil bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Truth Watchers, granting the surges of progression and illumination. In the physical realm, Mistspren appear as a translucent shimmer of light, like a reflection off a mirror. When they stay still, light grows upward from them like small plants, but retreat again once they start moving. They seem to be able to vanish when they don't want to be seen. In Shadesmar, they have bodies made out of mist, with gaseous limbs that end in gloved hands. Their faces resemble translucent porcelain masks that sparkle in light. Their facial expressions never change, nor do their lips move when they speak. Their voices are delicate and have a cracking glass quality to them. The clothing they wear fits on their amorphous bodies as if they were solid. Although they usually prefer to keep their form in the shape of a human, they can take on other forms if they wish. Peakspren are a type of sapient spren that can form Nihil bonds with humans to create the Knights Radiant Order of Stone Wards, granting the surges of cohesion and tension. In the physical realm, Peakspren take the form of little stone people. They can disappear into stone and stay hidden if they want. To reappear, they break out of other nearby stone, even if it's as small as a pebble. In Shadesmar, Peakspren are human-shaped with skin that appears to be made of cracked rock. These cracks glow from within as if molten. They wear human clothing that resemble the fashion of horn-eaters. Their stone is warm to the touch, and they speak with grinding voices. The final true spren are the Oathgate spren. They are giant spren the size of buildings that reside over the Oathgates in pairs. In each pair, one of the spren is the color of mother of pearl, and the other is a shimmering oily black. They wear armor and hold massive spears. They speak at the same time, voices overlapping, and their mouths don't move. They call themselves the Gatekeepers and facilitate transfer between the physical realm and Shadesmar at the Oathgates. They refer to the sibling as the parent. Let me know in the comments, what type of Radiant True Spren would you want to bond? Unique Spren. There are a handful of Spren that appear to be one of a kind, with no other like them on Roshar. They are the following. Kusakesh the Protector is a massive Spren that resides in Cassator Bay in the Kingdom of Eerie. It's one of the largest known Spren, described as being at least 100 feet in height. It rises from the waters of the bay each morning at exactly 7:46. The time of its appearance is so consistent that locals use it to set their timepieces. Kusakesh takes the shape of a large translucent jet of water. The center of this jet is of the deepest blue, like the ocean depths, and the outer edges are a lighter shade. As it surges from the waters of the bay, it appears to throw out waves, but these are illusory. The actual surface of the bay remains undisturbed. The column sprouts 4 long arms with fingers and thumbs that reach down to rest upon golden pedestals that have been placed by the people of the city. It forms a face at the end of a stump-like neck and looks eastward, directly toward the origin. The face shifts rapidly, different human faces appearing on the end of its neck. Some male, some female, never seeming to repeat. This display lasts for a full 10 minutes, and then Kusakesh retreats back into the bay, sending up more phantom waves. Some of the people of Cassator City worship the Spren, but most simply accept it as part of the city. The Night Watcher is a powerful Spren that was created by the Shard Cultivation. She resides in the valley within the mountains of People seek her out to ask for a boon, which she grants using the old magic. In exchange for the boon, she also bestows a curse upon the individual. She has an elongated figure made from dark green mist that flows above the ground. She seems to seep from the dark forest, pulling her vaporous body forward with 2 long arms, her essence trailing behind her like a long tail. The only part of her with any specific detail is her smooth, feminine face, set with silken black eyes. She can sprout numerous tiny hands from the misty sides of her head, which she uses to gently caress the face of those who seek her out. When she speaks, her feminine voice sounds like 100 overlapping whispers. The Night Watcher also happens to be one of the 3 bondsmith Spren, granting the surges of tension and adhesion to those who bond her. The Stormfather is a massive and powerful Spren that was created by the Shard Honor. He's one of the most highly invested entities on Roshar, and he commands the High Storms. The majority of the time, he simply resides in the High Storm as a disembodied presence. On occasion, he will display himself to mortals, looking down on them with a face as wide as eternity itself. He speaks with a powerful, booming voice that sounds like roaring wind, and he has a prideful and righteous air about him. He's one of the 3 bondsmith Spren, granting the surges of tension and adhesion to those who bond him. The singers refer to the Stormfather as the Rider of Storms. The Sibling is a powerful Spren that was created by both the Shards Honor and Cultivation. They reside in the Tower City of Urithiru, and in some ways are the Tower. They have control over the many fabrials throughout the tower. People can converse with the Sibling by resting their hand against one of the red veins of crystal that run through the walls of Urithiru. They will hear the Sibling's voice in their mind like a whisper, pitched somewhere between male and female. The Oathgate Spren follow the orders of the Sibling and refer to them as the Parent. The Sibling is one of the 3 bondsmith Spren, and like the other 2, grants the surges of tension and adhesion to those who bond them. The Unmade are a group of 9 ancient Spren created by the Shard Odium. Although they originally worked as Odium's minions, not all of them continue to do his bidding. They each have vast and terrible powers, but their intelligence varies drastically. The 9 members of the Unmade are as follows. Ashertmarn, a mindless Unmade that is also known as the Heart of the Revel. Ba Ado Mishram, she is one of the most intelligent Unmade. Chimerish, also known as the Dust Mother, she is sometimes conflated with the Night Watcher. Digonarthus, also known as the Black Fisher. Moloch, this one may be responsible for the death rattles. Nergaul, a mindless Unmade that is responsible for the thrill. Reshafir, also known as the Midnight Mother and the Spawning Mother. She spawns Midnight Essence. Ja Anat, also known as the Taker of Secrets. She is responsible for corrupting Spren, which she refers to as enlightening. Yelignar, also known as Blightwind. He doesn't have his own physical form and instead bonds with humans or singers, granting the host a variety of powers. Those were all 68 Spren we've seen so far in the Stormlight Archive. There's plenty more Cosmere lore on the way, so whether you're a longtime fan of the Cosmere or brand new to this incredible universe, be sure to give the video a like, hit the subscribe button, and join me on this journey of exploring the Cosmere.